Hi guys. All right, so it's December 3rd, day number 3 of our Advent blocks, day number 3 of December. So let's find out what's on block number 3. Oops. Looks like we got a bunch of stars. I wonder what we'll learn about a bunch of stars. Let's find out. We'll move our light of the world block on over to day number 3, block number 3. We've got Levi upstairs getting ready for bed, and he sounds a little unhappy, but we'll try to keep going and see if he falls asleep. All right, day number 3, God's pretty crazy promise, the story of Abraham. So we're in Genesis still, but we are chapters 15 verse 1 to 6, chapter 17 verse 1 to 14, and chapter 21 verses 1 to 7. All right, the story of Abraham. After the big flood in Noah's time, things got better for a little bit, but not completely, not all the way. God was still far away, and God's world, which was supposed to be filled with life and laughter and beauty, was still filled with wrong and with darkness. God was getting ready to do something about it. He was going to prepare a way to be with his people again, forever. But he wouldn't do it like he did in Noah's time. Remember, he promised with the rainbow in the sky, he said, I will not flood the world again, I promise. So he said, no flood this time. This time, God would use the best part of his creation, people like me and like you. And he started with an old man named Abraham. Abraham, God said, I know you don't have any kids yet, but one day you're going to have a huge family. In fact, you'll have more people in your family than there are stars in the sky. Abraham looked up at the night sky. He didn't even try counting. After all, do you know how many stars are in the sky? How many do you think? A lot. More than 100, more than 1,000, more than 1,000,000, more than 100,000 million. That's pretty big, huh? Abraham didn't know what to say, but God wasn't done. Abraham, God said, the most important thing isn't even that you'll have 100,000 million children and grandchildren and great-great-great-grandchildren. The most important thing is that one of your great-great-great-grandchildren will be a child who will bring me back to all the people of the earth. So remember, when Adam and Eve were created, God was with them. They were together. And then Adam and Eve sinned, and God said, okay, we're going to be apart. We're going to be apart. And in Noah's time, same thing. They were still apart. And because they were apart, the world was filled with wrong and with darkness. And in Abraham's time too, the world was filled with wrong and with darkness. And God's telling Abraham, but one of your great-great-great-grandchildren will be a child who will bring me back to all the people on the earth. We'll be together again, like I wanted. And when this child is born, everyone will say, this is the king we've been waiting for. Who do you think that child is? Jesus. Abraham started laughing to himself, and his wife Sarah laughed too. It wasn't a happy laugh, though. They were laughing at God. Not a good idea, of course, but you have to admit it was a pretty crazy promise. Remember that Abraham and Sarah are old, like really old. Have you ever seen a really old lady have a baby? Probably not. Or have you ever seen a really old lady have 1,000,000 babies? Definitely not. So they thought, I think this promise is a little bit silly, God. But God came back to Abraham a few more times, and he kept pointing Abraham up to the stars. And even though the promise seemed crazy, Abraham believed what God had said. And God was with Abraham. And even though Abraham was too old to have children, and even though his wife was too old to have children, and even when Abraham started to doubt God's promise, God was with Abraham. And sure enough, just as God had promised, Abraham's wife Sarah got pregnant. She gave birth to a baby boy named Isaac, which means son of laughter. Abraham and Sarah both laughed again, but this time they weren't laughing at God. They were laughing with God. They were so happy. It was like a little glimpse of heaven had started to break through. Maybe, they thought, maybe God really would come back and they would be together. God told Abraham to do a lot of other scary things, like leave his home and go to a brand new place that he had never seen before. And Abraham listened to God. But Abraham did not always trust God fully. He was a person, and remember, none of us are perfect. So he didn't always listen right away, and he did many things that made God's heart really sad. And he sinned in ways that hurt other people. And because of that, let's hear our poem for today. When they didn't listen, God seemed far away. So Abraham and Sarah began to hope and to pray. God, will you come back to stay? And we'll read more tomorrow about what happens after Abraham and Sarah leave their home. Good to read with you. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.